The palace fell silent. Cameras rolled, and then, with a heavy voice and tearful eyes, Prince William stepped forward. In his hands, Queen Elizabeth's hidden will, locked away for years, meant only for the right moment. That moment was now. As he read her final words, the room froze. But it was Queen Camilla's reaction that stunned the world. Tears streamed down her face as truth shattered decades of silence. The will exposed loyalties, secrets, and one cryptic line that changed everything. This wasn't just royal history, it was emotional reckoning, live before the world's eyes, and it had only just begun. Opening drama: William's shocking announcement. It was meant to be a formal royal update. Journalists expected smiles, maybe a new initiative. But no one expected this. As the room filled with quiet chatter, Prince William stepped forward with a sealed document in hand, his face unusually solemn. He held up the envelope, gold-trimmed and marked with the Queen's crest, and said 6 words that froze the entire room. "This is the Queen's hidden will." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Queen Camilla, seated beside King Charles, stiffened instantly. Her hands clenched the arms of her chair, and her breath visibly quickened. Cameras caught it all, her eyes darting to Charles, her lips trembling as she seemed to understand exactly what was about to unfold. William continued, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "This is her voice, her final truth, speaking not as a monarch, but as a grandmother, a mother and a woman of duty." Camilla's expression crumbled. One hand reached for her face as she fought back the wave of emotion rushing in. A single tear slid down her cheek. It wasn't a staged moment. It wasn't rehearsed. This was raw, breaking history in real time. William then added, "Her words will change everything. This document is not meant to divide, but to finally heal." The cameras zoomed in on Camilla, who now dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief, trying but failing to keep control. Charles leaned in slightly, a mix of confusion and sadness flashing across his face. The room felt electric, as if centuries of silence had just been shattered by the voice of a woman no longer present, yet suddenly louder than ever. William laid the document down, then stepped back, allowing the moment to settle. In that instant, it became clear. This wasn't just about royal paperwork. This was a reckoning, a final message from the late Queen, and a confrontation none of them could avoid. And for Camilla, the tears were just beginning. Caught on video, Camilla's breakdown. No one expected what came next, not even the palace. While the press conference ended and the public reeled from William's bombshell announcement, something else was quietly brewing inside the palace walls. A private moment, meant to stay behind closed doors, was captured by a single CCTV camera. Queen Camilla, alone in a corridor, crumbling in a way the world had never seen. The footage, leaked just hours later, spread like wildfire across the internet. Camilla could be seen leaning against a wall, face in her hands, shoulders shaking uncontrollably. Her voice, when barely audible, was caught by the corridor mic. "No, not this. After all the years." A palace aide quickly rushed to her side, attempting to comfort her, but Camilla pushed them away, visibly overwhelmed. It was raw, unscripted emotion. The video wasn't supposed to get out, but once it did, there was no stopping it. Within minutes, #Camilla crying was trending worldwide. Millions watched the moment on repeat, some with sympathy, others with speculation. For many, It was the first time they had seen the Queen Consort not as the polished figure beside King Charles, but as a woman haunted by words she never expected to face. The Queen's hidden will had not only shaken the public, it had shattered the walls Camilla had built around herself for decades. Social media was split. Some believed the emotion was genuine, a painful reaction to being blindsided by the past. Others speculated whether the tears were part of a larger palace PR strategy. But no matter the opinion, one thing was certain: Camilla's image would never be the same. Even inside the palace, aides were left stunned. One insider described the moment as the heaviest silence we've ever felt inside those walls. It wasn't just embarrassment, it was heartbreak. And not just personal heartbreak, but institutional heartbreak. Because in those few minutes of unfiltered grief, the monarchy looked less like an unshakable institution and more like a fractured family, caught in the storm of long-buried truths, finally breaking through. Unveiling the hidden will. The next morning, as headlines exploded and every TV screen replayed William's reveal, the focus shifted too. The contents of the Queen's hidden will. For decades, royal wills have been guarded by secrecy, kept locked away, unread by the public. But this one was different. This one had a message the Queen wanted delivered even after her passing, and it wasn't gentle. William read portions of the will aloud to a select group of family and advisors behind closed doors, and a few lines were quickly leaked. One clause immediately caught attention: "To protect my boys above all." Another read, "Let truth be known, even if uncomfortable." But the most cryptic and controversial line said, "The answers lie in his father." That phrase alone ignited a firestorm. Whispers about Harry's true parentage, long buried under years of denials and silence, returned with full force. Tabloids, talk shows, and online sleuths dove headfirst into speculation. Did the Queen know something the world didn't? Was this a veiled admission? But beyond the gossip, the will revealed something more powerful: a queen who wanted resolution. Her words seemed directed not at the institution, but at her family. She referenced Camilla as a trusted guardian, which both shocked and unsettled Camilla, especially after William's revelations about her alleged influence over Diana's legacy. For many, the will didn't just raise questions, it offered a challenge. A call to be transparent, a reminder that no matter how high the crown sits, truth can still demand to be heard. And for Camilla, that truth was now pressing harder than ever. William's emotional reading. Later that day, in a quieter room away from the flashing lights and roaring press, Prince William sat down for an internal debriefing with senior royals and aides. There, he read from the Queen's hidden will again, this time slowly, emotionally, with long pauses between each word. His tone was not of anger or vengeance. It was of sorrow, a son carrying the weight of history. William described how he found the will tucked inside a special compartment of the Queen's safe room, stored away with letters, photographs, and a locket containing a photo of young Harry and himself. His hands shook as he opened it for the first time. "It felt like she was still speaking to us," he said. When he read the line, "Her voice reaches beyond the grave to heal the living," he choked up. The Queen had written about Diana, calling her a mother of unmatched devotion, and stressing the importance of protecting her sons from being used as symbols. William revealed that Camilla had whispered something to him after the press conference. "This is bigger than we ever imagined." That single sentence, he said, reminded him that even those we expect to be unshakable, like Camilla, can be floored by the past. William didn't hide his emotions. He didn't try to spin the narrative. Instead, he sat with it. And in doing so, he reminded everyone that behind the suits and tiaras were people, wounded, grieving, trying to honor memories and move forward. The Queen's hidden will wasn't a bombshell. It was a love letter. One final, profound attempt at peace. Camilla's shock and guilty conflict. Away from the headlines and flashing cameras, Queen Camilla retreated into a far quieter place, her private rooms, where few were allowed to enter. The woman who had once seemed untouchable was now consumed by reflection and regret. She had not known about the contents of the Queen's hidden will, and that alone had shaken her to her core. Sources close to her revealed she kept reading the will over and over, especially the part about being a trusted guardian. That title felt more like a test than a compliment. In private, Camilla was heard whispering, "Did I do enough for them? Did I protect Harry like she wanted?" It wasn't just guilt about the past, it was doubt about her present role. For years, she had fought to be accepted, to be seen as more than just the other woman. Now, in the wake of this revelation, she feared that history would judge her again. But this time, not just as a controversial figure, but as someone who possibly let Diana's last wishes fall through the cracks. She began writing for the first time in years, keeping a journal. Aides noticed her withdrawn mood, her lack of appetite, her long stares out the window. They said she didn't even touch her tea. Camilla wasn't just heartbroken. She was questioning everything. Her duty, her position, her place in the story. And above all, she was wrestling with one unshakable question. What if I misunderstood the role I was meant to play? This wasn't about scandal anymore. It was about legacy. And Camilla, for the first time, seemed unsure whether she belonged in the one the Queen had left behind. Harry's reaction and paternity rumors. As the contents of the Queen's hidden will echoed through the world, one name stood at the heart of it all, Prince Harry. And his reaction? Unexpectedly emotional. Sources close to the royal household shared that Harry reached out to Camilla directly, his voice full of gratitude and pain. "Thank you," he reportedly whispered through tears. It was the first genuine moment of connection between them in years. But the warmth didn't last long. The line in the will, "The answers lie in his father," ignited a firestorm. For years, whispers had circulated about Harry's paternity. The old rumors about James Hewitt resurfaced, fueled by conspiracy theorists and opportunistic tabloids. The Queen's cryptic wording reopened a wound many hoped had scarred over. Inside the palace, Camilla was visibly shaken. This wasn't the kind of legacy she wanted to confront. She was seen pacing in her private suite, reportedly muttering, "Not this again. Please, not this." She had hoped the will would bring peace, not scandal. Her tears returned, not just from guilt, but from the deep fear that her role in the family's healing had now been overshadowed. William, noticing the growing chaos, stepped in to calm the narrative. "Focus on the will," he insisted to aides, "not on gossip." His voice was calm, but the steel underneath was unmistakable. It was a clear signal. Protect the Queen's message, protect the family, and above all, protect Harry. In that moment, even as the world speculated, something rare happened. William and Harry, though miles apart, seemed to stand on the same side. Not for the crown, not for tradition, but for truth, however painful it may be. Media frenzy and viral sensation. It didn't take long for the Queen's hidden will to dominate every headline, every screen, every conversation. The press labeled it the most shocking royal reveal since Diana's Panorama interview. But this time, it wasn't a princess telling her truth. It was a prince exposing the past in his grandmother's words. Camilla's tearful breakdown, caught on CCTV, became a global phenomenon. The clip, short but haunting, played over and over on news broadcasts and viral reels. Social media was flooded with reactions, some compassionate, others cynical. Hashtags like Camilla crying, hashtag Will and the Will, and Royal Truth dominated trends for days. The internet divided itself almost instantly. Some praised Camilla's emotion, calling it a sign of a woman deeply moved by the Queen's words. Others accused her of performing grief to shift the blame or guilt. Commentators debated every twitch of her face, every dab of her eyes with a tissue. Body language experts gave lengthy analyses. Even late-night talk shows picked up on the spectacle. Royal analysts were more cautious. Some noted that Camilla's response humanized the monarchy at a time when many saw it as too cold, too polished. Others questioned the timing of the will's release, hinting it could be a strategic move to repair fractured public trust before Harry's next media appearance. What couldn't be ignored, however, was the emotional power of the moment. This wasn't just a media frenzy, it was a public reckoning. People didn't want palace spin or protocol. They wanted truth. And for the first time in a long while, they felt they were getting it. Even critics admitted that whatever the palace's intentions, the rawness of William's delivery and Camilla's reaction couldn't be staged. This wasn't just about succession or ceremony anymore. It was about emotion, about memory, and about how deeply unresolved grief can still shake the most powerful family in the country. Palace spin and legal maneuvers. As expected, the royal PR machine quickly roared to life. Within hours of Camilla's emotional footage going viral, Buckingham Palace issued a brief but carefully worded statement. It acknowledged Camilla's deep and personal sorrow and reaffirmed the family's commitment to protecting the dignity of the Queen's legacy. But behind the scenes, something far less dignified was unfolding. Palace lawyers were reportedly already working overtime. Legal notices were sent to major broadcasters, warning them not to air the leaked hallway footage. Internet platforms received takedown requests. But the clip had already taken on a life of its own. It was in text threads, reaction videos, global media, unstoppable. Internally, aides debated next steps. A private interview for Camilla was floated, a chance for her to tell her side of the story, perhaps to soften public opinion. But Charles was hesitant. He knew any misstep could make matters worse. William reportedly pushed back. Let the will speak for itself. One surprising move came from King Charles himself, who appeared in a rare solo video address just days later. Standing in the palace garden, he spoke softly. Now is a time for reflection, not division. His tone was pleading, gentle, almost fatherly. He avoided specifics but made it clear. Unity was his goal. Still, behind closed doors, unity was hard to find. Camilla remained out of public view. William stood firm on transparency, and lawyers continued to debate whether further clauses of the will could be redacted, or whether the damage was already done. The Queen's hidden will had done more than rattle emotions. It had triggered a legal and reputational crisis, one that couldn't be solved by spin or ceremony, but only, perhaps, by truth. And the palace was still deciding how much of that truth it could afford to share. Historical context of the will. Though the Queen's will shocked the public, its very existence had a backstory stretching far beyond the headlines. Royal wills are traditionally sealed and kept under lock and key. Most never see the light of day. But this one was different. This will, insiders whispered, had been written and rewritten multiple times, always in secrecy, always in ink, only the Queen herself touched. One senior royal historian claimed the final draft was completed in late 2023, just weeks before the Queen's passing. It was reportedly stored in a hidden compartment inside her private study, a room no aide entered without permission. There, it rested beside personal letters, family photographs, and Queen Elizabeth's most private reflections. The key moment, it seems, came after a deeply emotional conversation with Harry, one where he poured out his frustrations, his fears, and his heartbreak over his place in the family. That conversation stayed with the Queen, and it inspired her to write a version of her will that didn't just divide estates, it told a story, one of legacy, protection, and maternal instinct. The Queen rarely revised her will, but after that talk with Harry, and following growing tensions within the family, she made an exception. The codicils she added were precise, meant to secure Harry's independence, affirm his value beyond the crown, and subtly suggest that questions long left unanswered deserved attention. For royal watchers, it marked a turning point. Never before had a monarch tried to speak emotionally from beyond the grave. But Elizabeth, always the quiet strategist, had done just that, leaving behind a roadmap for healing or unraveling, depending on how it was handled. And now, the family stood at the crossroads she quietly carved with her final pen. Royal Family Aftershocks. The release of the Queen's hidden will sent more than headlines. It triggered seismic shifts within the family. In the days that followed, Prince William took on a new mantle, not just heir, but mediator. He publicly urged unity, saying, "We must heal with truth." That framing cast an unexpected emotional spotlight on the entire royal household. Prince Harry, grappling with the explosive line, "The answers lie in his father," issued a measured, heartfelt response. He called the will "my mother's lasting gift." He expressed gratitude to Camilla in private terms, acknowledging her painful shock and emotional transparency. These gestures suggested a fragile but firm solidarity emerging from chaos. Behind closed doors, Camilla quietly made peace offerings. She met with aides and quietly sought moments of connection with both princes. Gentle gestures meant to dissolve the distance. Rumors circulated of a private dinner where she broke bread with Harry in a rare moment of reconciliation. As for King Charles, he found himself between his wife's anguish and his sister's resolve. Though largely silent publicly, his personal communications reflected melody of remorse and determination. He began consultations with advisors and spiritual counselors, attempting to find a way forward that honored his mother's legacy, steadied his son's role, and restored calm to the crown. This was not a fleeting tempest. Aides described the atmosphere at formal gatherings as slow, tense, almost ceremonial in its restraint. Kisses on cheeks appeared more performative. Handshakes, deliberate. Camilla's recent absence from public view, intended for reflection, was read by many as both injury and retreat. Conversely, William's visibility increased, his speeches more personal, his public demeanor warmer, more accessible. In interviews and honeyed praise, commentators began seeing a shift, from polished monarchy to someone more human, more flawed. And at the heart of that shift stood Camilla, a queen in tears, a family seeking healing, a crown needing recalibration. In this moment of aftershocks, one central truth emerged. No matter how grand an institution is, its foundation lies in people. And when those people fracture, the structure trembles. The will's words had broken more than secrecy. They had cracked the surface of generations, forcing a family to confront grief, regret, duty, and love in public view, hinting at Harry's real father. Among the tumult of the will's revelations, the line that haunted the public most was, "The answers lie in his father." Once seen as metaphorical, the line began to be read as potential biological hint, sending the rumor mills, still fueled by Harry's strained relationship with his father, into overdrive. While tabloids wildly speculated about hidden paternity, insiders emphasized that the line reflected deeper emotional truths about Charles's shortcomings, about Diana's concerns, and about the weight of expectation. Still, the suggestion lingered, darkening everything in its shadow. Camilla's private turmoil intensified. She was no stranger to scandal, but this whisper cut closer, raising questions not just of her husband's role, but of her relationship with him at its core. One confidant reportedly found her staring at old photographs, trembling as she asked herself, "What if history has it wrong?" Yet even within that uncertainty, a shift surfaced. William, protective of Harry's future and conscious of the rumor's destructive power, took measured actions. He secured public statements, reminding people that the will's call for transparency did not equate to conspiracy. "Let's focus on our mother's message," he insisted, "not sensational headlines." Against this backdrop, whispers of an independent inquiry began to circulate, whether driven by concern, pressure, or preparation. Legal minds discussed the possibility of formal clarification, but royal aides pushed back. No investigation could heal grief or restore faith. Instead, only honesty from the family might do that. As the crown moved through this volatile terrain, no one could forget that the greatest unresolved secret in the palace wasn't a DNA test, but the history of emotional estrangement that had followed Diana's death. The will had reopened that history, and it wouldn't close easily. In a poignant palace moment, Camilla was overheard telling an aide, "If he isn't, I need them to know I never stood in her way." Whether she meant emotionally or biologically, it marked a queen grappling with questions no monarchy should bear alone. Cliffhanger. What comes next? As the dust began to settle, one question loomed larger than any other. What came next? Camilla announced her intention to write a memoir tentatively titled Tears of Truth. In her own words, she aimed to set the record straight, honest, vulnerable, reflective. Meanwhile, William prepared a BBC documentary to publicly read the full contents of the Queen's will, weaving never-before-seen footage and testimony into a personal exploration of legacy. He invited Harry to participate, offering a pathway toward joint healing, or at least mutual respect. Harry, poised but wary, hinted at further commentary, perhaps in his upcoming memoir, but stressed that the real answers remained in family conversations, not press releases. The palace quietly began mapping out a new advisory framework, a transparency committee tasked with clarifying lines of succession, roles of consorts, and boundaries between personal influence and public duty. It was framed as legacy preservation, but inside the walls, it was crisis control. In a final poignant scene, cameras caught Camilla gazing at an old photograph of the Queen and Diana, a single tear trailing down her cheek. She traced their faces silently, as if seeking permission, forgiveness, or clarity. Her whispered promise hung in the air, "I will reveal everything." As the camera panned away, the screen faded to black. A single caption appeared, The truth has been revealed, and yet the story is far from over. As the Queen's hidden words echo through the palace walls, nothing remains the same. A family reeling, a crown questioned, and a queen in tears. This revelation rewrote everything. But one question lingers. If this truth shattered them, what else is still waiting to be revealed? The next chapter is coming.